The wind screamed across Careen 4 like angry ghosts. Sand and dust whirled across the horizon, carving scars into the endless dunes. Beneath the raging storm, a few lights flickered from a cluster of shelters, simple domes buried halfway in the ground to survive the violent weather. This was home to the Valori, a quiet and gentle race who had long abandoned the stars. Once they traded with other worlds, now they mined the grey minerals under their feet and prayed that the galaxy would forget they existed. But that night the galaxy remembered. A flash tore across the black sky, brighter than lightning. The light streaked downward, growing into a ball of fire. The storm roared louder as the object slammed into the far dunes, shaking the ground and filling the air with ash and static. The Valori saw it from miles away. It looked like a star had fallen. "Another meteor?" one miner shouted through the wind. "No," said Lerin, the village healer. Her pale blue eyes reflected the distant fire. "That's metal. It came from the stars." The others hesitated. The Valori feared outsiders. Their legends spoke of wars fought long ago, of a brutal species called humans who vanished after burning half the galaxy in their battles. No one had seen one in hundreds of years. Some thought they were myths. Still, curiosity pulled at Lerin's heart. She grabbed her breathing mask, wrapped her long robe tight, and stepped into the storm. A few brave miners followed. The crash site was chaos. Pieces of blackened metal were half buried in the sand, still smoking. Sparks snapped through the wreckage like dying lightning. Lerin waved her scanner. Energy readings were unstable. This was no asteroid. It was an escape pod. Then she saw movement. Through a shattered hatch, someone was lying still. The figure was large, far larger than any Valori. Its body was covered in scorched armor, symbols engraved across the chest plate. Lerin crouched beside it, brushing away dust and metal shards. Beneath a cracked helmet, she saw pale skin, blood, and eyes closed in pain. "It's alive," she whispered. The miners stepped back in fear. "Lerin, no! It's one of them. One of the old destroyers. Leave it here!" But she couldn't. The being was barely breathing, his pulse weak but steady. Something inside her refused to walk away. "He's wounded," she said firmly. "And he's alone." Ignoring their protests, Lerin called for a lift drone. Together they carried the stranger back through the storm toward their hidden city, a vast underground maze carved into the rocks. The doors sealed behind them as the wind howled above. In the quiet glow of the healing chamber, machines hummed softly. The human's armor had to be cut open with lasers. The metal resisted every tool they had. Beneath it, his body was scarred with burns and bruises. His organs, "They're built for oxygen," Lerin murmured, studying his readings. Stronger bones, denser muscles. How did such creatures ever vanish? She injected a stabilizing serum, her hands shaking. Hours passed. Finally, the human stirred. His eyes, gray and sharp like iron, opened halfway. Where am I?" he rasped. "You're safe," Lerin said gently. "You crashed on Careen 4. We found you in the dunes." The human tried to sit, but pain forced him back. He stared at her, confusion mixing with disbelief. "Valori," he muttered. "Didn't think any of you survived." Lerin froze. "You know of us." Before he could answer, the room lights flickered. The human coughed hard, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. "Listen to me. You must destroy my ship. Every trace. If they find the beacon—" he gasped, eyes widening. "They're coming. If I don't return, they'll think I'm dead." "Who's coming?" she asked, heart pounding. But his eyes rolled back and he fell into unconsciousness. Hours later, Lerin stood beside the wreckage deep in the desert cavern where they had hidden it. The storm outside still raged, covering their tracks. The other Valori Council members had gathered. "You broke every rule," their leader hissed. "You brought a stranger from the stars into our home. Do you know what this means?" "I saved a life," Lerin said quietly. "That should mean something." "It means danger," the leader snapped. "You've invited it to our door." Lerin turned away from their fear. Something inside the wreck caught her eye, an object pulsing faintly under the sand. A beacon, round and silver, marked with human symbols. It was still active, its light blinking like a heartbeat. She knelt, brushing the dust aside. "Maybe this tells us who he is," she murmured. Her hand hovered over the device. "Don't touch that," a miner warned. But Lerin's curiosity had always been stronger than her fear. She pressed the center of the beacon. A deep hum filled the air. The symbol on it glowed bright blue. The sand around them rippled as waves of invisible energy burst outward across the planet. The hum became a low, powerful tone, an ancient call echoing through space. Lerin stumbled back, terrified. What did I just do? Far above, beyond the atmosphere, the signal pierced the void. It traveled across light years, through abandoned channels, through the silence of forgotten satellites, until it reached something old and waiting. In the darkness between stars, a red light flickered to life on a distant console. A machine voice whispered, "Signal confirmed." ID Captain Elias Ward. Status lost in action. Beacon reactivated. Then, for the first time in centuries, the human systems began to wake, and deep beneath the sand, unaware of what she had done, Lerin stood trembling beside the wreck of a fallen legend, while far away, humanity stirred from its long silence. Days passed after the crash. The human, now known as Captain Elias Ward, remained weak but alive. The Valori healers did what they could, though his body was strange to them. His muscles were heavier, his bones thicker, his heartbeat slower but stronger. The others still whispered that keeping him was a mistake, but Lerin refused to listen. She spent every day by his side, watching his wounds close and his strength return. When he finally spoke again, his voice was low, rough, but full of control. "You saved me," he said simply. "Why?" Lerin looked confused. "Because you were dying." "Isn't that enough reason?" He stared at her as if that answer didn't make sense. In his world, mercy was rare. "Your people still believe in kindness," he said softly. "I thought that was gone from the galaxy." The others watched from a distance, fearful but curious. They had never seen a human before, never seen those hard eyes, that strange mix of calm and danger. He asked for tools, and though they were unsure, Lerin provided them. Soon Elias began repairing small machines the Valori had long forgotten how to fix. Drills, scanners, power cores. It was as if technology obeyed him. At night, the two talked. Lerin asked about Earth, about humanity. Elias told her stories of blue oceans and steel cities that touched the sky, of soldiers who fought not for conquest, but for survival. He spoke of the Terran Federation, once powerful and feared, then vanished after a great war against something he only called the Devourers. "What happened to your people?" she asked one night. He stared at the glowing lights above the healing chamber. "We fought too many wars. We went home to rebuild and promised never to return to the stars unless we had to." Lerin thought about that for a long time. "Maybe you should have stayed among us. The galaxy is quiet now, but not peaceful. The strong still crush the weak." Elias smiled faintly. "That never changes." As weeks passed, the human's strength grew. The Valori children followed him, fascinated by the giant who could lift metal beams with one arm. He trained some of the miners in simple defense, how to use terrain, how to stand and fight if raiders ever returned. He spoke with calm authority, and even those who once feared him began to trust him. But the council did not share that trust. One morning, as Lerin walked to the chamber, she found 2 guards blocking the door. "The council has decided," one said coldly. "The human must leave. He draws attention. If others learn he's here, it could bring death to us all." Lerin's heart sank. "He isn't a threat. He is a storm waiting to happen," the elder replied. "And storms always return." When Elias learned the decision, he did not argue. He only nodded slowly. "I understand. Your people kept me alive. I will not bring harm to your world." He packed what little he had left, a repaired communicator, a survival pack, and a strange round medallion marked with the Terran insignia. Before leaving, he met Lerin one last time in the outer cavern. "You could stay," she said quietly. "You've done no harm." He shook his head. "If I stay, the danger will find me. And you." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Elias took the medallion and pressed it into her hand. "If ever your people are in danger," he said, "use this. It will send a signal. Humanity remembers its debts." Lerin looked at the device, uncertain. "You believe your kind will come back for us? After all this time?" He smiled faintly. "We always come back. Sometimes late, but we never forget." Before dawn, Elias left. The Valori watched his small ship rise into the sky, a single streak of light cutting through the desert storm. Some believed he would never survive the void. Others whispered that he was only a ghost, proof that the humans were still out there watching. Years turned into decades. The story of the stranger became legend among the Valori. Children spoke of the Iron Wanderer, the man who came from the stars and vanished into them again. The medallion stayed hidden in Lerin's home, its light long dead. But sometimes during the long desert nights, when the storms roared over Kareen 4, Lerin would look up at the stars and wonder where he had gone. She would touch the cold metal coin and whisper, "You said you would come back." And though the sky remained silent, something deep in her heart believed that promise was not broken, only waiting. She could not know that far away. Beyond the reach of any Valori telescope, old satellites still drifted through space, silent watchers carrying the lost signals of humankind. And one of them, hidden among the debris of forgotten wars, still recognized the faint code of Captain Elias Ward. It was asleep. But not forever. The galaxy had forgotten the Terrans. The Valori had forgotten the war. Even the stars seemed quiet. But one day something would break that silence. One day a storm far greater than any desert wind would come roaring back. And when it did, every world that ever touched humanity would remember why they were both feared and loved. Lerin didn't know it yet, but the kindness she showed one dying man had already set that storm in motion. 20 years had passed since the stranger from the stars left Kareen 4. The desert winds still howled, the storm still raged, and the Valori still mined their grey stones beneath the sand. Life had returned to its quiet rhythm. The story of Captain Elias Ward had become little more than a legend now, a tale the elders told to children at night. Most of the young ones laughed when they heard it. "Humans?" they would say. No one's seen one of those for 1,000 years. But Lerin never laughed. Her hair had turned silver, her hands slower, her eyes softer. But she still remembered the fire that fell from the sky and the man who spoke of forgotten worlds. She kept his medallion locked inside a small chest, hidden from everyone. Sometimes in the dark, she would take it out and stare at the dull metal symbol. It had not glowed in decades, yet she still felt something alive inside it. Then came the day when the sky burned again, but this time it was not a crash from the stars. It started with whispers. Traders passing through the outer colonies spoke of fleets moving in the void. Black ships, fast and cruel, marked with the symbol of the Draxian Syndicate, a merciless empire that conquered for profit and pleasure. They were not explorers. They were hunters. And they were getting closer. When the first Draxian ships appeared over Kareen 4, the Valori thought it was a mistake. The Council tried to send messages of peace, but the Draxians only laughed. They descended with fire. Their soldiers, tall, armored, with crimson eyes, marched through the mining camps, taking what they wanted. The Valori were no warriors. Their weapons were old and weak. The Syndicate burned entire settlements in hours. The sky turned red with smoke. Lerin was in the medical tunnels when the first explosions hit the outer dome. The walls shook, lights flickered, and screams echoed through the halls. She ran to the shelters, guiding the wounded, her old hands trembling as she sealed doors behind them. "We can't fight them," cried one miner. "We have nothing left." Lerin looked up at the dust-covered ceiling. "There is one thing," she whispered. That night, while the Draxians bombarded the surface, Lerin returned to her quarters. She opened the old chest, lifted the medallion, and brushed the dust away. The small coin still bore the faint human insignia, an eagle with wings spread wide. Her mind raced with memories. Elias Ward's voice, calm and steady, saying, "If ever your people are in danger, use this." Humanity remembers its debts. She didn't know if it still worked. Maybe it never did. But she had nothing else left to try. Carrying the medallion, Lerin made her way through hidden tunnels to the old cavern, the same one where the human ship had once crashed. It was quiet now, filled with sand and bones of old machines. The ancient beacon, half buried and covered in dust, still sat there, lifeless. Lerin knelt beside it. "You said you would come back," she whispered. "If you can hear me, please, we need you." Her fingers pressed the medallion against the beacon's surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Only silence and the rumble of bombs above. Then faintly a blue light flickered. The beacon pulsed once, twice, then came alive with a deep hum that echoed through the cavern. Lights crawled across its surface, symbols waking after 20 silent years. "What is that sound?" One of the miners gasped behind her. "The call," Lerin said softly. "His call." Outside, the Draxians continued their attack, unaware of what had just been set in motion. The signal shot upward through the storm, piercing the atmosphere, vanishing into the stars. Across the galaxy, beyond forgotten trade routes and abandoned stations, something ancient listened. Thousands of light-years away, deep inside a dark sector of space, an old Terran listening post floated quietly among asteroids. It had been silent for centuries, its systems running on the barest trickle of power. Its crew were long gone, its purpose forgotten. But tonight a light blinked on. The computer reactivated with a crackle of static. Kay's signal, old, weak but unmistakable, had been detected. It carried a Terran identification code. The name attached to the signal made the AI unit pause. Captain Elias Ward, Priority Level Omega. Message: Valori in danger, respond, repay the debt. The post's AI processed the data for 0.4 seconds. Then it sent the message forward through secure channels that had not been used in ages. One by one, silent networks began to light up again, relays awakening, systems checking codes, confirming signatures. Somewhere in the deep halls of the Terran Federation Command Nexus, alarms began to sound. Human officers looked up from their consoles, faces pale as they read the message. "Sir, this ID is impossible," one of them said. "Captain Ward was declared lost 140 years ago." The Admiral leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "And yet his beacon just went live. Prepare a response. Ready the Third Fleet." Back on Careen 4, the Valori gathered underground, terrified. The Draxians were closing in, their ships filling the skies. The Council begged for surrender, but Lerin only stared upward through the cracks of the ceiling, where faint flashes of red lit the clouds. She held the medallion tightly in her hand and whispered to the stars, "Please, human, keep your promise." And far away in the darkness between worlds, hundreds of Terran warships began to awaken. Engines powered up. Weapons hummed. Old banners bearing the eagle insignia were raised once more. Humanity had heard the call. The galaxy that forgot them was about to remember. The silence of deep space was broken by a faint hum, an old transmission repeating endlessly across forgotten channels. At the Terran Outer Listening Post, Sigma 9, the control room lights flickered on for the first time in a century. Automated systems checked the incoming signal, then sent it to Central Command with a single coded phrase: "Beacon Ward 7 reactivated. Valerie distress confirmed." The message jumped through relay after relay, each one buried inside asteroids or orbiting dead moons. And then, at last, it reached the Terran Federation Command Nexus, the most heavily fortified structure in human space. Admiral Lyra Reyes stood on the observation deck, staring out at the dark nebula beyond the station's shield. When the alert tone echoed through the hall, she turned sharply. "Report," she ordered. A young officer ran to her with a datapad. "Ma'am, we've received an Omega-level beacon. Old encryption, Terran War era. It carries the identification of Captain Elias Ward." Reyes froze. "That's impossible." "Ward's mission predates the Exodus Protocol." "Yes, ma'am," the officer replied, "but the beacon is active. Location, Outer Rim System, Careen Sector. Message reads, Valori in danger, respond, repay the debt." The Admiral's eyes hardened. He always did keep his promises. She turned toward the command platform. "Wake the Third Fleet." Engines thundered across human space. Dozens of massive Terran warships, sleek metallic gray with glowing blue engines, lit up the dark like new stars. Dockyards came alive. Drones refueled carriers and pilots ran to their stations. The name Ward carried weight. It was a name from the old wars, from the age when humanity had nearly died but refused to surrender. Across the Federation, old veterans whispered the same phrase: "A debt owed is a debt repaid." Meanwhile, on Careen 4, the Valori fought to survive. The Draxian syndicate had taken the surface. Smoke blanketed the skies, turning day into permanent twilight. The Valori tunnels shook with constant bombardment. Entire cities had fallen silent. In the underground refuge, Lerin sat beside a small generator, clutching the now glowing human medallion. It pulsed with light steady as a heartbeat. A young Valori miner approached her. "He's not coming, Lerin. Whoever that human was, he's gone. No one's out there." Lerin looked up slowly. "Then why is this glowing again?" Before he could answer, the ground trembled violently. The ceiling dust rained down, and a distant explosion echoed through the tunnels. "The Draxians have breached the East Gate," someone shouted. "They're coming!" Lerin's heart pounded. She looked at the medallion. It flashed faster now, the light turning from blue to white. "They're not coming for us," she whispered. "They're already on their way." Out in the void, the Terran Third Fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm. The lead ship, TFS Resolute, carried the command bridge. Admiral Reyes stood at the central console, her uniform crisp, her face lit by the glow of tactical displays. "Fleet status?" she asked. "All ships ready, weapons charged. Coordinates locked on Kareen 4, replied Commander Rhea Ward, daughter of Elias Ward. Rhea's expression was calm but fierce. She had grown up hearing stories of her father's final mission, stories the Federation had long classified as myth. But when the beacon activated, she knew it wasn't coincidence. It was a call meant for her. Reyes studied her for a moment. "Your father believed in the Valori, do you?" "I believe in debts, Admiral," Rhea said quietly. "And in promises. Then let's keep his." The order was given. From hyperspace, the Terran fleet dropped into orbit above Kareen 4. The planet glowed with fire below, burning cities, Draxian ships hovering like dark insects around the world. The Terran ships appeared silently at first, like shadows among the stars. Then their engines flared. One by one, the Terran warships formed a line above the planet. Massive dreadnoughts and carriers darkened the skies. The Draxian command cruiser detected them seconds later. The enemy commander snarled, "Unidentified vessels, this is Draxian territory. You will withdraw immediately." A calm voice answered across all open channels, echoing through every Draxian ship, every Valori radio, and even through the storming clouds. "This is Admiral Lyra Reyes of the Terran Federation. You are occupying a protected world. Withdraw your forces or face annihilation." The Draxian laughed. "The humans? The old ghosts? You think you can frighten us with myths?" Reyes nodded to Rhea. "Transmit full power signal." In an instant, every Terran ship activated its identification codes. Thousands of blue lights flashed across the fleet's hulls, forming the unmistakable Terran Eagle, the same symbol Elias Ward had carried. The galaxy hadn't seen that mark in centuries. "Ghosts," the Draxian muttered, eyes widening. "Impossible." Reyes gave the order. "All ships, fire." The void exploded with light. Terran rail cannons tore through enemy ships. Missiles streaked across the darkness like falling stars. Plasma beams ripped apart the Draxian fleet in seconds. The Valori below watched from the caves as the night sky turned white with energy fire. For the first time in generations, humanity's voice echoed across the stars again, not in words but in thunder. On the surface, Draxian troops began to retreat in panic. The Valori, dazed and trembling, stepped out from hiding to see the impossible. The burning remains of the Draxian warships falling through the atmosphere like rain. Lerin stood at the edge of the canyon, staring up at the sky. The blue engines of the Terran fleet painted the clouds in color. Her eyes filled with tears. "You came back," she whispered. High above, aboard the Resolute, Commander Rhea Ward looked down at the planet through the viewport. Her sensors detected a signal deep below the sands, the old beacon still active, still carrying her father's name. She smiled faintly. "We found them, Father, and now they'll never stand alone again." The galaxy had forgotten the Terrans, but now their echo filled the void once more, loud, unstoppable, and terrifying. Humanity had returned. And this time they weren't just defending one man's promise. They were reminding the stars why humanity was never truly gone. The smoke over Kareen 4 had barely cleared when the silence fell. The Draxians were gone, their warships shattered and scattered across the upper atmosphere. The Valori stood in disbelief, staring up at the lightless sky now filled with Terran ships, vast, cold, and powerful. But with the awe came fear. Humanity had returned, yes, but they didn't come quietly. They came like a storm. Lerin stood outside the healer's dome, dust swirling around her robes. She looked up at the glowing insignia in the sky, the Terran Eagle still burning bright against the darkness. She could feel the power in those ships, but she could also feel something else underneath it, a warning. Behind her, an elder spoke in a low voice. "The humans saved us. But at what cost?" Before she could answer, a deep mechanical sound rolled through the air. A massive shadow passed over them, a dropship descending from the Terran fleet. Its engines roared like thunder as it landed on the sand, kicking up waves of dust. Laren shielded her eyes. The dropship's ramp hissed open. Metal boots clanked down one by one. Terran soldiers, armored head to toe, stepped out, weapons gleaming, visors glowing faintly blue. At their center was a woman in a sleek black command suit, with silver markings along her shoulders. Commander Rhea Ward. She approached slowly, her expression unreadable. "Who is the one who activated the beacon?" Laren hesitated, then stepped forward. "I did." Rhea studied her for a moment, then extended a small holographic display. A recording flickered to life. Captain Elias Ward, wounded and breathing heavily inside his ship. "If you find this, know that I failed. The Draxians found Careen 4, but the Valerie helped me. They hid me when no one else would. If my signal ever reaches Earth again, repay them. Protect them, no matter the cost." The recording ended. Rhea looked at Laren. "My father owed you his life. The Terran Federation repays its debts." Laren nodded slowly. "You already have. You saved us, but Rhea didn't move." "No," she said quietly. "That was only the beginning." Hours later, the skies were filled with Terran drones. They scanned every crater, every tunnel, every wreck. Massive terraforming rigs descended to stabilize the atmosphere. A new orbital platform was being built above the planet, a human military outpost. The Valori watched in confusion as Terran machines began carving new structures into their sacred dunes. "What are they doing?" one elder asked. "They said they're helping rebuild," another replied, uncertain. But the truth was more complicated. Inside the Terran command tent, Rhea stood beside Admiral Reyes, looking at the holographic map of the sector. Dozens of red blips glowed, enemy fleets, Draxian strongholds, and pirate clans. Reyes spoke coldly. The Draxians weren't just invading Careen 4. They were mapping ancient Terran routes. This world sits on an old hyperspace artery that leads straight to our core territories. If they had secured it, they could have reached Earth. "So this wasn't random," Rhea muttered. "No," Reyes said, "and that's why we can't just leave. Careen 4 becomes a Terran protectorate now." Rhea's expression darkened. "You mean occupation?" Reyes didn't answer. "The Federation needs strong footholds again. If the galaxy wants to test us, they'll remember this place first." That night, Laren found Rhea standing near the canyon ridge, looking at the glowing Terran ships above. "Your people work fast," Laren said. Rhea turned slightly. "They always have. Some of my council fear you won't leave." Rhea looked down. "They're right to fear that." Laren frowned. "Then this wasn't rescue. It was conquest." Rhea's voice softened. "It's survival. You think we came to rule? No. We came because the war that almost destroyed us once, it's coming again. The Draxians are only one piece. There are others moving in the dark. Old enemies. And new ones." Laren studied her face. "Then why save us?" Rhea hesitated. "Because of what my father said. You saved him when humanity was at its weakest. He believed there was still kindness in the galaxy. If he was right, then maybe we still deserve to exist." Laren looked up at the sky. "You're rebuilding your strength here." Rhea didn't deny it, and I won't apologize for it. Days turned into weeks. Terran ships created massive orbital grids, mining facilities, and communication towers. The Valori were given food, medicine, and protection, but always under Terran supervision. The once silent desert world now glowed with blue light and steel. Whispers spread among the Valerie. Some saw the humans as saviors. Others saw them as conquerors cloaked in promises. Laren stood at the center of it all, torn between gratitude and dread. Then one night, while she examined the repaired escape pod of Elias Ward, the medallion he left her pulsed again, faint but steady. Curious, she placed it on the control panel. A hidden message unlocked. The hologram flickered to life again, showing Ward's tired face. "If you're seeing this, it means they found you." "My people." He took a deep breath. "They'll protect you. But beware, the Federation doesn't come without hunger. They'll turn protection into empire. Don't let them repeat our mistakes." The message ended. Laren froze, her heart pounding. Ward had warned her centuries before this moment. Months passed. The once quiet planet Careen 4 was no longer the same. Where there were dunes, now stood walls of metal. Where there was silence, now echoed the deep hum of Terran engines. To the Valori, the change was both miracle and curse. The Terrans built everything with terrifying speed: solar towers, foundries, even new homes for the Valerie. They gave food, power, and technology beyond imagination. Yet behind every gift was a soldier, behind every promise a contract, and behind every smile a rule written in Terran law. Laren watched from the balcony of her dwelling as giant warships drifted across the sky, blotting out the stars. She could feel the vibration of their engines in her bones. "They said they'd protect us," she whispered. "But from what? Or from whom?" Inside the command fortress, Commander Rhea Ward stood before a massive tactical display. Blue holographic dots represented Terran fleets spreading across the nearby sectors. Every few hours, new orders arrived from Earth. She had followed every command faithfully, until now. Her assistant, Lieutenant Core, handed her a data slate. Report from the southern sector. Mining complete. Local resistance suppressed. Suppressed? Rhea repeated. Those people were miners, not soldiers. They refused to leave when we moved the drill rigs, Core said flatly. Rhea clenched her jaw. And your solution was to... Core hesitated. Standard protocol, ma'am. Federation law states. Enough, she snapped. Get out. When he was gone, Rhea stared at the hologram of Kareen 4's surface. She zoomed in on the Valori city, remembering the day she first met Laren, the quiet healer who had saved her father's life decades ago. Her father had spoken of kindness, of mercy, of the idea that humanity could be more than conquerors. But here she was, leading an occupation. Later that evening, Rhea walked through the lower city alone, her hood pulled low. She wanted to see the truth for herself, not through reports. She passed Terran soldiers guarding food stations, Valori children watching with wide, fearful eyes. Shops were closing early by Terran order. When she reached the old healer's quarter, she found Laren outside tending to an injured miner. "Commander," Laren said coldly, not rising. "Laren," Rhea answered. "I came to check on your people." "You mean your people," Laren replied. "Everything here now belongs to the Federation," Rhea sighed. "That's not what I want." "Then stop it," Laren said, her voice sharp. "Tell your soldiers to leave our homes. Tell them we don't need their protection anymore." "You do," Rhea said quietly. "The Draxians will return. Others will come. If we leave, this planet dies." Laren looked up, her eyes blazing. "Better to die free than live under your machines." The words cut deep. Before Rhea could reply, a loud crack echoed in the distance, an explosion. Both women turned toward the sound. Smoke rose from the supply depot near the edge of the city. By the time they reached it, chaos had erupted. Terran troops were shouting, weapons raised. Valerie miners ran through the smoke, some carrying tools, others throwing rocks in desperation. "Cease fire!" Rhea commanded. "Cease fire now." But it was too late. One soldier panicked and fired. The plasma bolt struck a Valori worker in the chest. He fell instantly. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Laren knelt beside the fallen miner, her trembling hands soaked in red-gold blood. She looked up at Rhea, her expression full of something worse than anger, disbelief. "You call this protection?" she whispered. Rhea froze. The soldiers stood still, their weapons still glowing. The sky above was filled with the faint hum of orbiting ships, watching everything. "Take me to your leader," Laren said coldly. "I will speak to your Federation myself." Hours later, inside the command citadel, Laren stood before a holotransmission, an image of Admiral Reyes and the Terran High Council projected from Earth. The Admiral's face was stern, his voice even colder. "You are the Valori healer who aided Captain Ward." "I am," Laren said. "He once told me humanity repays its debts. Is this how you repay them? By ruling over those who saved you." Reyes didn't blink. "Your world is a Federation protectorate now. That is repayment." "Protection doesn't look like this," she said. "It looks like chains." Rhea stood nearby, silent, fists clenched. The Admiral leaned closer to the hologram. "Watch your words, alien. The Federation is rebuilding civilization. You should be grateful." Laren's voice trembled, but she didn't back down. "Civilization? You call this peace? You've only replaced the Draxians with yourselves." The Admiral gave a cold smile. "Perhaps you forget who saved your world." Then he looked at Rhea. "Commander Ward, control your subject." "Or I will." The hologram flickered out. Laren turned to Rhea, her eyes burning with tears. "He was right. Your father warned me. Humans never stop fighting, even when there's no one left to fight. Rhea said nothing. She couldn't, because deep down she knew it was true. That night, Rhea stood on the observation deck, watching Terran dropships descend like falling stars. She whispered to the darkness, "Father, what would you have done?" The silence gave no answer. Below, in the shadows of the city, Valori resistance groups began to form. Miners, farmers, and engineers, armed with scavenged Terran tech and burning anger. They called themselves the Remembered, and far above them on Earth's Central Command, another transmission was being sent, one Rhea wasn't supposed to hear. "Prepare the prototype. If the Valori resist, deploy orbital judgment." It was signed by Admiral Reyes himself. The price of protection had just turned into the threat of extinction. And for the first time in her life, Rhea Ward began to question whether humanity truly deserved to survive at all. The sky over Careen 4 burned red. The Terran fleet hovered above like steel gods, their engines shaking the air, their shadows swallowing the desert. The Valori city below was silent, half in ruins, half waiting. The people hid underground, their hearts filled with both fear and defiance. Commander Rhea Ward stood inside the orbital command center, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. 1,000 ships waited for her order, each one armed with enough power to erase a world. Admiral Reyes' voice crackled through the comms. "Begin orbital judgment." "Endless rebellion before it spreads," Rhea didn't answer. Her fingers hovered over the console. Every instinct in her screamed no. Beside her, Lieutenant Kor watched nervously. "Ma'am, the fleet is standing by." Rhea closed her eyes. She could still hear her father's voice, faint but clear, echoing in her memory. "Humanity doesn't forget kindness, Rhea. If you must fight, fight to protect, not to rule." She opened her eyes. "I won't destroy them," she said quietly. Kor hesitated. "Admiral Reyes will court-martial you." "Let him," she said. "I'd rather be exiled than become a murderer." Down on the surface, Lerin and the Resistance, the Remembered, gathered in the tunnels beneath the old mining ridge. The air was thick with dust and fear. Makeshift lights flickered across metal crates filled with salvaged Terran weapons. A young Valori miner approached. "They're going to fire from orbit. What do we do?" Lerin gripped the medallion Elias Ward had given her decades ago. It still glowed faintly, as if alive. "We trust him," she whispered. The others didn't understand. "Trust who?" "The human who promised to return." Suddenly the medallion pulsed brighter, once, twice, then projected a small hologram. A message old and fragmented, from Captain Elias Ward himself. "If they forget what it means to be human, remind them. Activate code Red Horizon. It will reach them. I promise." The hologram faded, leaving silence behind. Lerin didn't know what Red Horizon meant, but she pressed the medallion's core anyway. High above the planet, in the command center, Rhea's console suddenly lit up with a priority alert. The system recognized a code not used in nearly a century, Red Horizon Ward Protocol. Her breath caught. "That's my father's code." The entire command deck froze. The computers began to override the firing sequence automatically. The countdown for orbital strike stopped. Screens flashed red warnings. Federation Directive Override. Legacy Command Authorization. Elias Ward. Rhea stared, stunned. Her father's name, the man who once vanished in the stars, was now rewriting Terran Command itself. "Lieutenant Kor," she said softly, "prepare a channel to the fleet. Broadcast on all bands." Her voice echoed across the ships, across the planet, across every speaker that bore the Terran insignia. "This is Commander Rhea Ward. Effective immediately. I'm assuming emergency authority under Ward Protocol. All fleets stand down. No fire, no judgment. Humanity repays its debts. We do not burn those who once saved us." There was silence. Then slowly, ship by ship, lights across the Terran fleet turned from red to blue, standby mode. Reyes's furious voice broke through moments later. "You have no authority to countermand my orders, Commander." Rhea stood tall. "My father's code still holds rank in the Federation's core systems. You forgot your own history, Admiral. He helped build this fleet. He believed in humanity. Do you?" Reyes snarled. "You're finished, Ward." "Maybe," she said. "But at least I'll be finished as my father's daughter." She cut the channel. On the surface, the bombardment never came. The sky dimmed, the engines quieted. The Valori stepped out of hiding, their eyes wide, seeing Terran ships drift in silence above. Lerin fell to her knees, the medallion glowing softly in her hands. "He kept his promise," she whispered. Moments later, a Terran shuttle descended through the clouds. Rhea stepped out, her black uniform dusted with gold sand.